allows it to be reduced by another 0.25, and then they were even assuming more that it would get approved, and that's how they were getting to that 0.6. So it just clarified that. I did talk briefly with the city attorney about the MPDU question, not in terms of any substance, but whether if you got into whether we could in the LMC and the mayor and board ultimately, adopting it, whether you could do something that would supersede the MPDU ordinance chapter of the city code without actually also going in and changing the city code. Her initial reaction, this wasn't hours of analyzing or studies, but was you could. It's not good legislative format to do that, because then you have a disconnect in your ordinance. So, ideally, if you were going to change it, you would change the chapter 19 as well. And then she did raise the point that the mayor and board are contemplating amendments overall in a more holistic capacity to the MPD ordinance, or the chapter 19 of the city code. So wouldn't, those sorts of changes should be looked at holistically, was the feedback. I don't know. I haven't been involved with any of the MPDU potential legislative changes, what's going on there. But it is on the radar.
Bad Ben isn't here, because the last time I talked to him, it sounded like they were, it wasn't really anywhere yet.
I can see if it's anywhere, like besides in talk, if they have it planned for a workshop, or
they've had a workshop on it. End of March.
Okay.
I think, but the impression, because I talked to Ben after the workshop, and it sounded like it was just like, we can't decide, we don't know.
Lots of good ideas.
Yeah, they haven't gotten as far as any further than that.
Yeah, more specific policy changes. So that was her initial feedback.
Seems to me that at least putting this in something like that, and from my perspective, putting that into our notes, and into our recommendation, kind of forces the mayor and board to start thinking about it a little bit more, even if they don't ultimately approve it at this point.
And that was going to be my, overall sentiment. This is your recommendation.
Right.
And you don't have to recommend, if there were specific language, if we were looking at the ordinance, I think Commissioner Manalis with the MU text amendment, she recognized something that was like kind of a specific, like, oh, we need to amend this reviewing authority thing. And there was a really specific, like, we recommend approval of this with this added language. That's one thing. But if you also just have more conceptual things, we don't need specific language for you to incorporate that into your recommendation. Okay. If you want to say we recommend approval of this with the caveat that all houses be blue, we don't need someone to come with a legislative draft of anything for your recommendation. So, and it is.
So, and based on that, and this is the way I was looking at it, if they're asking for this increase of density, then to me, all the rules and regulations and everything that's written is something that we're now going to elicit those changes. So if we change the density for Carroll Creek, we can recommend X amount of MPDU, not even recommend it, require. If we're going to recommend this to the mayor and board, then we could put in specific, so MPDU and parking could be part of that. And that's what I was trying to get at the workshop was you can't keep some parts of the LMC in place because you're asking for an increase of density, and the increase of density has to include A and B or C.
So right. any of those things, I just meant conceptually, you could make a recommendation that was as simple without having, what I want to see, the applicant may not agree with your recommendation to require MPDUs. So they're probably not going to revise their draft to provide you with something that you would
Right.
ultimately get to a place of approval with, right?
Right.
Like to be like,
Yeah.
yes, we recommend approval of this. So we could go on forever without making a recommendation if we waited for that. Whereas if the commission feels like it has all the information that it wants and you have reached a place where you feel confident with your recommendation, it could be just something as simple as we support this amendment with changes that would require X, Y, and Z, MPDUs to be provided, one space per unit. That's all I meant, is that you're not going to get a draft ordinance that you're going to want to recommend flat out approval with if there are things that you don't, if there are things you want to see, and that's okay to just make a recommendation of that nature.
Okay.
If you're comfortable with it.
Yeah, and this gets back to the to me, the kind of training thing. I'll use training thing in quotes of we don't have to, we can have our own specific recommendations that we read into the record on Monday, and then it's up to the mayor and board whether they adopt them or not.
Right. And as long as you all agree with them, right? But we don't want everybody to come with their own recommendations. The group would need to vote on something, but correct. As long as the commission is comfortable making a recommendation, understanding that from your point on that, how that got built in, either the mayor and board could go, no, we don't like that, thank you anyway, or the mayor and board could go, good, we like this. And then, but you've waived your right to see that exact language. Like from there, it would move on without you.
Right.
That's I want you all to be mindful of that if you make a recommendation general like that, then you're not seeing exact language. But I don't know that you're going to see exact language if it's not something that the applicant is building into it, right?
Right.
Because it's their amendment.
And then whether or not the recommendations are, or let's say the recommendations were accepted, then it's up to the mayor and board to change whatever regulations, LMC or whatever needs to happen to put if they agree with us, and if not, then obviously it doesn't need to.
Yeah, a number of things could, the applicant could go, could see the writing on the wall, see that they wanted to change other things. They could withdraw it. It's their application. They could say, we don't want to. They could say, okay, we'll help craft that language. The staff may, if the mayor and board said, we want to see this, but we want to see it with this language, we would then be compelled to start working on it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Right. That clarifies things a lot. So, all right. And then we just have the 2 annexations, and this is our second hearing for those.
No, this is your first hearing. You had the workshop.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
We only need 1 hearing on the annexations.
Oh, I get so confused about when we need 2 hearings. Okay.
2 hearings are always master plans and rezonings.
Why don't annexations need 2 hearings? That sounds like
you would think.
That sounds like it's almost more important than the master plan.
Well, and it's consistent with the with the rezoning that ultimately requires mayor and board approval, that this is a stop on the way to that. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know legislatively if that's just something that no one ever thought about, or if there was an actual intent to only have the 1 meetings, but it's a good question. But yeah, this is the only meeting unless you see fit to continue if you didn't have information that you needed to make your decisions.
Nothing new since the workshop?
Cherian, I know there was a little bit with the roads. Cherian, did I think the decision to increase the fee for square footage, did that go up to the $1.25? It was something before.
Well, I had a calculation, and I think floated up the change for $1.25 from $1.75 per square feet for rent too. The rent to estimate of 75 cents per square feet was from 2016 timeframe. So there's significant cost escalation to projects, and I think we figured that we sort of worked out what what is still outstanding. And I mean, it's a rough calculation that I've done, not something the applicant engaged in, like for rent too. So that's a proposal. We kind of put that to note that the annexation agreements before both these applications do not have any of those proffers. So they will need a significant redo of the annexation agreement to incorporate all this. I think we're also calling for specific construction of the Logistics Park Road from Gashouse Pike to the southern end of Mercer property. And I believe county will be sending in a letter requesting proffers for projects that are in the county. That's really where I believe at this point they stand.
I think that was the only information between the workshop and the hearing that got updated.
Yeah, I think I also had a question in terms of, I think the city actually owns, from the testimony that I remember, owns a pumping station on the south side of Gashouse Pike. I think there was some question also about archaeological area in that nobody wanted to talk about it, or nobody can talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the question of and that's why I thought I was getting to something there, that the south side one, the city actually owns part of the area that they're asking to be annexed. Am I wrong there? Did I miss something?
Are you thinking about the archaeological portion?
No, it was kind of like it was kind of a funny that nobody wanted to actually talk about the south side part and where this mystery archaeological area is, and then apparently on the south side of it, the city actually owns a pumping station in there and maybe owns the property already. Did I miss something there?
I was under the impression, and I could be wrong, we'll make sure we can get you additional information. I was under the assumption that the archaeological area may be under a separate ownership altogether. In terms of a pump station, I don't know if in this vicinity any of the sewer would be a county-owned facility.
I remember somebody saying it wasn't the archaeological area.
Okay.
I thought that's why everybody was tap dancing around it. But
Yeah.
that the city actually owned part of the property that we're talking about with the annexation. If we can just get clarification on that, that's my recollection of that discussion.
Yeah, I will definitely follow up on that. I'll go back and check the tape too and make sure.
I didn't recall that at all, but who knows? I mean, my understanding was that they were tap dancing around the archaeological area because they didn't want to specifically talk about it, because they didn't want people walking in and disturbing it. But.
Right. But I think that there was something somebody mentioned at some point that the city owns a pumping station on that side of the river.
Yeah. We'll get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, I could be wrong. I've made up things before. I'm not going to stop now.
Sometimes I'm like, was that a dream or did it really happen? The lines of lucidity, Very great.
We're getting a lot of new terms when it comes into this thing. I think what was I forget what Bruce said. There was the thing about the bubble.
Oh, what did he talk about?
There was something about a bubble.
A bubble. Leave it to Bruce.
which actually had something to do with this discussion too. But that's and lines of lucidity. That's a new one. That's you own that one, Gabrielle.
Good.
I'm going viral.
Make a movie out of that.
There we go.
All right. Do we have anything else?
No, I appreciate, and I'll say the same to everybody else on Monday. I appreciate everybody's willingness to start our workshop earlier on the 20th.
I haven't even looked at that agenda yet. It just sounds hairy already.
Hopefully I tend to be very Chicken Little. I panic. So hopefully I'm just overestimated.
So the city is still doing the community meeting on the Monday night?
No, we're going to do that Tuesday night too.
Oh, it's still on the calendar. The main calendar on the website is Monday night.
Okay. Well, thank you. I will.
I was like, oh, good. Well, at least we don't have to worry about, stopping for the community meeting.
No, we did the same conflict. I'll make sure we get that updated.
Yeah, double check that then.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just throw this out there. Monday and Friday meetings are about the least functional thing that I ever thought of in my career. I just don't understand it. So if we can somehow get to Tuesday, Thursdays, I travel a lot Friday afternoons. 9 times out of 10, we're getting ready to rev up a plane and go somewhere.
We start looking at our calendar for the upcoming year, in late October, November. We start, deciding if we want to make any kind of holistic changes to things. If any of the commission members, my mom asked me the same thing. She's like, 3:00 meetings, who's in charge of that? And I'm like, I think I am. She's like, why do you do that? I'm like, I don't know. But I think at one point maybe it worked better for people. At the end of my week, I'm a commission member. I can take off at 3:00 on a Friday. But the world has changed. People work a lot of different non-traditional schedules and have different flexibility. That assumption that's most commission members might not be the same anymore. So as we start to look at the calendar, I think that.
If you wouldn't mind throwing it into the discussion when you guys are doing it in November.
Yeah, no, with the planning commission hearings and workshops, it's a little harder because then we're competing for the boardroom space and all of that. But but
the Mondays obviously there are a lot of holidays on Mondays, so that's a problem right there. And then Fridays people want to get out of town, so whatever.
Yeah, no, like I said, it's always good to recheck what you do and if it makes sense periodically. So
sure,
cool.
Look forward to seeing you guys on Monday.
Pardon me?
Look forward to seeing you guys on Monday.
Yep. So I have a question for you that's not related to the agenda at all.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, if it looks like that the mayor and board are not really taking any positive steps with the MPDU regulations, is that something that the planning commission could actually take on and recommend directly to them just on our own without having an applicant bring it?
In the sense that we have in the past written just kind of letters to the mayor and board and said, hey, look, we see this as an issue. We think this is important. Yes.
Yeah.
In terms of being given any staff resource, in terms of you guys going, hey, Gabrielle, pull together a draft of an MPDU ordinance. Unfortunately, no. It's not something that I don't think the planning commission could act as an applicant on per se. But in terms of wanting to voice support, I think even
to the point of doing some of the background work. Instead of just doing a letter that says, hey, we really think you need to change the MPDU ordinance, lay it out more like, it can look like that, even if we don't actually do a specific draft.
Right. Yeah, I don't think you're precluded from making those sorts of recommendations, and
and I would imagine, and I know this was in the also in the Frederick News Post in terms of their governance committee. there's nothing to say. If we made a recommendation to the mayor and board that, you know, we'd like to see changes to the MPDU, et cetera, then board members then can ask for staff input
Right.
to make those changes, correct?
Yeah.
Correct, right. So the mayor is the ultimate, you know, executive
Yeah.
who assigns our time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I
we
don't-
don't need staff time to make those recommendations.
Yeah.
I'm getting to the point where I find it very frustrating at this point, given how much we need housing, to just have applicants automatically. It's like, nope, we're just going to do, you know, the fee and lieu.
Fee and lieu.
I'm like, let's just, especially since it sounds like, at least according to Ben, I mean, the city isn't really spending all that money in a way that's really helping improve housing anyway.
It's a good question in terms of where does all that with fee and lieu in terms of schools?
Yeah.
Where does it really go? And
Yeah.
I'm
mean-
curious about that.
So anyway,
Archaeological studies, you know, we get these reports. You know, I'm not sure what really goes into them. I know, Gabrielle, you provided us with something on that. But you know, I just look at something that's right in front of me when it comes to this development that's going on South Street, senior housing.
Mhm.
And I went to a historical.
actually, that's not just senior, that's affordable.
Yeah.
Really? I thought it was.
It's, yeah, it has some senior and it has some family, just everybody
Yeah,
else.
but
But
Yeah.
whatever it was, and again, I wasn't on the board at the time, but I went to a thing at the Civil War Medicine Museum, and these guys were these experts in terms of mapping, and on that property right there was McClellan's army was camped there
oh, really?
before
wow.
before Antietam.
Wow.
So then they did the archaeology. I
Yeah.
think they would have found a spoon or something.
I don't remember any. Yeah, I don't remember anything of significance showing up in.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I know an archaeological study was done. I'd love to see
Yeah.
what it actually looked like, because I saw this. I took a picture of it on their screen when they showed exactly where his army was camped, and it was right there, and my house.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's cool. That is neat. Yeah, I don't recall. It's been a little while, and I don't generally delve into all the weeds of the archaeology. We have a consultant who reviews those and things, but that's interesting.
Yeah, but I think it's all those things that we have questions about in terms of MPDU, et cetera, and, you know, fee in lieu of, you know, where does this, we approve it, and are these monies actually going to FCPS for fee in lieu of?
I don't think
The
it's
fee-
no.
Yeah.
I don't think
the fee.
Sorry. Go
Oh, the
to
fee in lieu of-
schools.
Yeah, the fee in lieu. So impact fees that you pay at the time of building permit, there are school impact fees that the city basically collects, but we're just a pass through that goes directly because they are the county's impact fees. Our school mitigation fee is actually money that comes to us that we're then responsible, we, the city, the Board of Aldermen is responsible for deciding how to spend, whether they want to give it to Frederick County Public Schools and say, here's the extra money that we've gotten through our mitigation agreements, or whether there are other educational, I think I use the term educational enhancement projects that the city would want to take on. So it is, that money is ours. The impact fees go straight through.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the MPDU money doesn't go to the schools.
No, the MPDU money, the Department of Housing and Human Services, I think we've called them now, they are the responsible entity for deciding how to spend that money.
Okay. No, great question, Joan.
My client's going to be here in 3 minutes, so I better get going.
Thank you so much,
We'll
guys.
see y'all
You guys see you
Monday.
Monday.
Take care. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye.